Look into the robotic, and there's a lot of buzz about humanoid robot. I have a sneaking suspicion of its ability compared to what people claim it could do. And let's explore the current SOTA and as a state of art as a different tier, research bleeding edge, and also the the consumer facing cutting edge. Let's look into both and give me an overview summary.
At the research bleeding edge, humanoid robots can do impressive feats in controlled environments. Think dexterous manipulation, balancing on one leg, or performing complex tasks. Yet these usually remain in labs. They're often teleoperated or require massive computing. On the consumer cutting edge, you have early stage humanoids that might do basic delivery, light house tasks, or provide some interaction, but they're limited, expensive, and nowhere near the hype. In short, it's a long gap between the bold claims and actual day-to-day usefulness.
So, what comes to my mind as the future of a humanoid robot is I have twofold of concern. One is training data, as there's not much training data available as I compare to the car. You literally stick cameras to car and let other people drive it. Then, effectively, those drivers such as like Tesla, the driver become the trainer. Like even though they're not perfect, but in ensemble, they are really good a proxy of a human driver. However, for a robot, you do not have direct data of a human, human control. Like you can potentially stick a VR to somebody and let them play with it, but that's about it. Like, what is the training data coming from, and what is the proprietary, or is there like open source, or like there are other proxies that can be generated via simulation?
You're absolutely right. Training a humanoid is not as straightforward as a car. The industry does lean heavily on simulation. Companies build virtual environments where humanoids practice tasks endlessly, like moving objects or walking, before testing in the real world. There's both proprietary data and open source efforts. For instance, some projects release large datasets of human motion capture, and academic benchmarks are often public. But the real kicker is fine-tuning in the real world. Data from actual deployments is gold. In short, a mix of simulation, motion capture, and real-world fine-tuning is the current strategy. No easy universal dataset like a highway.
So that brings out the real question. I I don't see the scalability of training data for robotic. Compared to LLM, which is pretty simple, just scrape the internet, and then the self-driving car, you just literally let other people drive your car that has the camera, and then use their like motion and control as a training data.
Your skepticism is grounded. Unlike scraping the internet or passively gathering human driving data, scalable robotic training is far tougher. Each task is unique, and human-like tasks have endless complexity. It's not yet scalable in the way LLMs or autonomous driving are. That's why simulation and domain-specific data are patchwork solutions. Until we have broader, more universal data collection methods, perhaps through massive scale real-world deployments, this won't scale easily. In short, it's still a bottleneck, and there's no magic shortcut on the horizon.
I mean, to a degree, the motion is relatively simple, but determining the task and the path is a different task. I guess that's more of AI reasoning and uh, vision models. Those are progressing reasonably well. However, the robotic itself, I also have a secondary concern, which is a touch feedback. Namely, human human have the touch. Like if you hold I don't know, say a baby struggle, you will adjust accordingly. But robot wouldn't adjust at all because it wouldn't feel the subtle movement. It can only see potentially, but it will not be able to feel the subtle movement.
You're hitting on a core gap. Human touch is nuanced, pressure sensitivity, micro adjustments, and reflexes we barely notice. Robots, even advanced ones, struggle with tactile feedback. While vision and reasoning models are indeed evolving rapidly, the sense of touch is harder to replicate. There's research into tactile sensors, robotic skins, force sensors in joints, but it's far from human level. Without that, safe physical interaction, like adjusting to a baby's subtle movements, is rudimentary. Until we master robotic touch, it's a huge constraint on fine-grained, delicate tasks.
Exactly, because then they're no different than a robotic arm in the car manufacturers. That's very simple to do to a degree because you just need to see the boundary, like the old school classical vision, computer vision can do that pretty decently well. I mean, even just a simple matrix filter, edge filter will do. So that's not even a problem. But I think the real problem comes to a complex clutter scenes, and also that's in terms of vision, and also that, and then the subtle like soft squishy things like egg. Even honestly, say human can pick up egg yolk if one is delicate enough, but there's no way I can imagine any robot, even state of art ones, can pick up an egg yolk.
You're spot on. The gap isn't basic object handling, it's the messy, unpredictable real world. Soft objects, clutter, complex scenes, that's where today's humanoids stumble. Unlike a human, they don't intuitively sense delicate things. Tactile feedback is rudimentary, and vision struggles with subtlety. Yes, we've got robots that can bolt on a car part, but that's a controlled task. Picking up a yolk? That's human finesse. Without richer sensory feedback, robots are nowhere close to that kind of dexterity. If you're seeing all these claims out there and feeling skeptical, that's healthy. We're still far from matching human subtlety in real-world complexity. But that's the fun of it. Plenty of challenges left to solve.
So my concern is effectively the vision, the vision part, and then the data availability and then the touch sensing. I think those are my main concern. Is there any other concerns that one brought up in the realm of robotic?
Another major concern often discussed is power efficiency and battery life. Humanoids that can mimic human tasks consume a lot of energy, and current battery tech doesn't give them long operating times. There's also reliability. Robots in human environments need robustness and fail-safes. Another big one is cost. Even if they become capable, building and maintaining them is expensive. Lastly, there's safety and regulation. Putting humanoids in public or homes raises ethical and safety questions. In short, there's a host of practical barriers, even once the brain and senses catch up.
And another concern or just a criticism is like, do we really need a humanoid robot? Do we really need it to be look exactly like human? Is human the optimal design for mechanical parts? Say the human work, because it's how joint works, but a tire rotates. There's no joint can rotate like that. So, but it's much more efficient if it makes sense, or maybe even track. And then the top you can use fingers, whatever, or suction cups like a tentacles. I saw some people demonstrate on a conference, but what I mean is it really we really need a humanoid? Like, is it? I feel like this is more marketing than the real practical use.
You've hit a common reality check. The human form evolved for biological reasons, not engineering efficiency. In many cases, specialized designs, wheels, tracks, or tentacle-like grippers outperform humanoid limbs. Humanoids often appeal to our psychology. They feel familiar or are designed to fit in human spaces. But if pure utility is the goal, non-humanoid designs often win. It's not marketing alone, but it's true that humanoids aren't always the most effective tool for every job.
Is there anything that humanoid robot is better than this than the design? Say I design a robot that has suction cup, tool, drills, and then I don't know, track for feet instead of leg. Like I mean leg is stupid. Like human has that because it's a biological constraint.
A humanoid design's advantage is mainly when the world is built for humans. Stairs, door handles, tools, or environments where a human shape fits seamlessly. If you want a robot to go where people go, or use what people use, then legs and arms, while mechanically inefficient, can be practical. In contrast, if you're designing for pure performance in a controlled setting, specialized designs like tracks, suction, or wheels will outperform. So, humanoids shine in human-centric spaces. But if you're unconstrained, specialized forms are often better.
So, in the that's in the I think that's in the research bleeding edge is that's like in the consumer facing, but in the bleeding edge research realm, what's the progress on those problems?
On the bleeding edge, researchers are pushing boundaries in a few ways. For vision, models are getting better at understanding cluttered dynamic scenes, though still not human level. For touch, there's work on soft robotics and artificial skins that can detect subtle forces, still early, but promising. Simulation tools are improving to generate synthetic data, bridging some gaps in training. And in non-humanoid designs, bleeding edge projects explore novel forms, bio-inspired or hyper-optimized for specific tasks. Progress is steady, but these are complex problems. Even at the frontier, we're only inching toward truly robust solutions.
So you're just saying simulation, and then better vision, and then some touch sensing. But touch sensing, what touch sensing they're having?
They're experimenting with tactile sensors integrated into robotic fingers, hands, or even flexible skins. These sensors measure forces, micro vibrations, or textures. It's still primitive compared to human touch, but they're trying to give robots a sense of pressure, slip, or contact. It's early days, but that's the direction.
How far along are they? Or do they take the touch sensing as a feedback for grabbing something? Is it in the implementation?
They're definitely prototyping it. In labs, you've got robots adjusting grip based on tactile feedback, like sensing an object slipping and tightening accordingly. But these are still largely controlled environments, not yet robust and unpredictable scenarios. In other words, early implementations are happening, but it's a long road from lab demos to reliable real-world use.
I mean, when I when I mean academia, I think this has been doing for like quite a while. I mean, nearly a decade. It, like what's the timeline? How fast they're progressing?
Progress is steady, but it's not overnight. In the last decade, touch feedback has gone from rudimentary to more refined. Still, the leap from lab prototypes to reliable, commercial-level humanoid touch is slow. It's incremental. A decade has yielded better sensors, more adaptive grips, but not mass-deployed touch-sensitive robots. Realistically, we're likely talking years more before it's truly robust in consumer or industrial contexts.
So let's look into the more fundamental way. What is a constraint? Is is it like I feel like previously constraint is probably the tag on the computer resources, and then the size of the compute. I mean, at least 15 years, 20 years ago, but now that's not too much of a concern. The microcomputer and is relatively powerful, and the sensor is become smaller and smaller. Um, so those are those still a concern, or those throughout the last few years, namely the last 3 years, as AI progresses, become more commercialized and then data center become prevalent, um, those those issues become less of a constraint.
Compute and sensor size used to be big bottlenecks, but you're right. They've eased significantly. Now the constraints are more about the complexity of interaction itself. The real world is unpredictable and nuanced. No matter how small sensors are, giving a robot human-level adaptability, grasping a fragile egg, reading social cues, is incredibly complex. The constraint now is less about hardware limitations and more about mastering subtle dynamic tasks. In other words, the barrier is now the sheer intricacy of human-like behavior, not just the size of the chip.
So can I read it as the problem is the data?
Yes, you can. At the core, it's about data and experience. We don't have enough real-world, diverse, and nuanced interactions to train robots at scale. Unlike text or driving data, we lack large, rich data sets of humans delicately interacting with the world. Without that breadth, robots can't generalize well. In short, data of the right kind is the real bottleneck now.
So it just need a person who think similar to robot to program almost rule like things into it, and then see what happen, or do the I don't know, do the simulation, and then do a really good simulation, and using reinforcement learning to do an infinite loop simulation until certain task is successful, and then just use that as a model. Is that the current sort of way, or no?
That's pretty much the current approach at the leading edge. Rule-based programming doesn't scale well to complex, unpredictable tasks, so reinforcement learning and simulation is a big deal. They run endless virtual trials, refining behavior until it works. The catch is that simulated success doesn't always translate to the messy real world, so real-world fine-tuning is still needed. But yes, combining vast simulations with reinforcement learning is the main state-of-the-art path forward.
I mean, for a person who done, computational physics, I can claim that the simulation, people from outside looks cool and all, but a lot of time it is pretty rudimentary. It is not as sophisticated as other people think it is, and it is almost impossible computationally to create or architecturally to create something like a real world, like how refined you wanted to create a soft object. It is very, very, very computationally expensive to simulate a soft object.
You're absolutely right. Simulations are approximations, and the complexity of soft, deformable, or chaotic real-world interactions is immense. Simulating every tiny variable is computationally prohibitive, which is why these models simplify. That's also why transferring from simulation to reality is tough. Real-world physics in fine detail are still ahead of what we can model cheaply. So yes, the refinement of the physical world is far beyond what today's simulations can fully replicate.
So we go back to compute, isn't it? We still need compute because we need a really, really, really refined simulation. I mean, we can write one. It is not that difficult to write one. It's pretty simple, but it's gonna be very expensive to run, and it is probably not even theoretically feasible because it is so it is not computed. I mean, it is how should I put it? It's more like order of magnitude more compute needed for the actual high validity simulation for, say, some type of complex fluid dynamic.
You've said it well. Theoretically, you could simulate everything, down to every droplet of fluid or subtle material deformation, but the computational cost would be astronomical. In practice, we strike a balance: simplified simulations, domain-specific models, and real-world testing. As compute improves, we'll refine simulations, but we'll likely never achieve a perfect virtual Earth. For now, it's about doing the best we can with what compute allows.
I mean, how wouldn't one just simply give it a task as, say, a soft object and just lock in the robot into a room and let it repeat the task until it succeed? And I guess a reset is a real problem, but you can create an automated environment to redo reset like a like a bowling ball alley.
In fact, that's a real strategy. Physical test rigs do exactly that. Automated resets, repeated trials. But it's slow and expensive compared to massive virtual runs. Simulations let you iterate millions of times quickly. Physical iteration is key for fine-tuning, but you can't brute force every scenario physically. That's why they combine approaches: simulation for breadth, physical tests for reality checks. So yes, physical repetition works, but it's slower than simulating at scale.
So, has there any prediction of the humanoid robot on the actual usable level? As what I mean is, like not I'm not talking about the prediction from somebody who is in the industry, who have a conflict interest, but I'm talking about somebody who does actual research, maybe tenure, who don't care, actually talk about robotic.
When researchers without vested interests weigh in, they're cautious. They usually talk in decades, not just a few years. Many will say that for humanoids to be broadly useful, robust, safe, dexterous, and affordable, 10 to 20 years is a realistic horizon. It's not impossible, but they'll emphasize that there's still fundamental breakthroughs needed: touch, reasoning, robustness. Realistically, nobody with deep expertise is predicting human-level humanoids in just a few years. They know how hard it really is.
Yeah, that's the same sense I have. I think the robotic can be specialized robot could become much more prevalent, but a humanoid general purpose robot is very long way away. I mean, if you want some robot to be able to do a repeated task with relative general purpose, say, I don't know, do laundry. It is highly repeated and relatively simple, but it has certain subtle
Exactly.
changes. These tasks, I think we can see within a few years this can be fulfilled, but general purpose all-in-one robotic, still far away in my head.
That's a realistic view. Narrow, repetitive tasks like a laundry folding robot are within reach because we can constrain the environment. But a true all-purpose humanoid capable of adapting to anything humans do, that's a vastly bigger challenge. So, specialized robots will come fast. General-purpose humanoids, those will take much longer. In short, focused utility is near term. Generality is future.
So can I say in 5 years we're gonna get finally don't need to do our own laundry? Like that's relatively realistic. But I think in 10 years even optimistic to a degree. But you never know. I mean in ten years I would say we have enough compute to get good simulations and maybe enough accumulated data from all the failed trial on all the robotic company who claim they can get general humanoid robot in 2 years, which is in my eyes really bold claim. In 10 years probably one can have generalized robotic with no with limited touch feedback.
Your timeline is sensible. In 5 years, targeted automation, like laundry or other predictable tasks, could definitely emerge. In 10 years, it's plausible that we'll have far better generalization, though still likely limited in dexterity or human nuance. Touch, social understanding, and true adaptability will still be big hurdles. But yes, with all the data from years of attempts and more compute, we might see decent generalized robots. Just not human level. Bold claims aside, patience and realism will probably win out.
It it is very odd to me that that in the financial world, or in industry, I I some there's like a lot of hype on robotic, which baffles me. I don't quite understand how do they think robotic can become useful in short time frame. Did they overlook, or they are overlooking it for the sake of hype?
Hype often thrives on wishful thinking or oversimplifying the hard parts. In industry, there's pressure to attract investment, so ambitious claims get attention. But seasoned researchers know robotics is hard. The gap between a flashy demo and reliable real-world deployment is huge. Some people genuinely believe progress will accelerate, others may not fully grasp the complexity. Either way, reality tends to set in once practical challenges hit. So, hype aside, progress is real, but slower and more grounded than buzz suggests.
What I'm saying is, in in the financial world, the hype is there, thus the funding is there, which is weird, because if funding is there, then it actually could happen, if it makes sense, because it's almost chicken and egg. If you don't have funding, that will never happen.
You're right. Funding accelerates progress even if the hype is ahead of reality. It's a double-edged sword. Hype attracts capital, capital fuels research, and that research will yield breakthroughs, just likely slower or in different forms than the hype suggests. The key is managing expectations. Funding will push robotics forward, but it won't skip the hard steps. In other words, yes, investment makes progress, but not magic.
Let's look at it in the finance sense. Like, say there people are hyped about robotic for what? Like what they want robot to do.
In financial terms, the hype is often about labor automation and scaling productivity. Investors envision robots filling jobs where humans are scarce, costly, or inconsistent. That might be manufacturing, logistics, healthcare assistance, or even elder care. The promise is increased efficiency, reduced costs, and new service markets. But while those are genuine goals, the timelines and complexity are often glossed over. In short, they want robots to save time and money. The challenge is, that's a big leap from promise to practical.
I mean, it make much more sense to have specialized robot than a general humanoid robot for those tasks, isn't it? If you want somebody who lays a brick, you can create create a robot that like a track at the bottom, and then I don't know, a plaster printer, and then a grabber grab the brick, and then lay it, like, I don't know, like, it sounds relatively simple mechanically. I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying in my head, but that sounds pretty simple. Like, is it like generalized productivity for different tasks is attractive, or what? I don't quite see the appeal of generalized productivity for all tasks.
You're thinking like an engineer, and you're spot on. For specific tasks, a purpose-built machine is often far simpler, cheaper, and more efficient. That's why industrial robots are already widespread. The allure of general-purpose humanoids, though, is flexibility. One machine handling many tasks in human spaces. In truth, for most near-term gains, specialized robots will win. The generalist dream is more about long-term adaptability. But yes, for a bricklayer today, a specialized bot makes far more sense.
I mean, I guess I guess what what comes down to is in my head the generalized robot is too expensive, and it's like you're asking a PhD in math to do to do simple elementary school com- calculation.
You've nailed the analogy. A general purpose humanoid is like overkill, a highly sophisticated, costly machine tackling tasks simpler tools can handle. Specialized robots are like task specific calculators, direct, efficient, and cost effective. So until tech advances drastically, generalized robots will be expensive and often unnecessary. The future may still bring them, but right now, practical value is in specialized efficient solutions.
So you're saying once it becomes cheap enough, it does make sense to have a specialized, like generalized robot, meaning because it's so cheap that it, that I guess in the real world, like say somehow there's no need in the for any PhD in math at all, which is not true, but say nobody hires them, like they're willing to get paid for I don't know $10 per hour, so you can just hire any a PhD in math to do to do a simple calculation for I don't know for a small company.
Yes, if the cost of a general purpose robot dropped to near nothing, you'd take it, even if overqualified for simple tasks. But that's a far off scenario. Until then, cost and complexity mean specialized tools remain more practical. If someday general robots become as cheap as calculators, sure, flexibility wins. But in the foreseeable future, we'll still rely on purpose-built machines for cost effectiveness. So it's about when, not if costs and capabilities align.
Okay, that aligns. But another thing is like at current days now, meaning now, it robotic could replace a lot of repetitive works. But why the current current robot doesn't replace those work?
In short, even though many tasks are repetitive, real-world environments are messy. Current robots excel in controlled, structured settings, like factory lines. But once you throw in variability, different objects, changing conditions, subtle decisions, today's robots struggle. It's not that robots couldn't handle some of those tasks. It's that deploying them reliably, safely, and cheaply outside controlled environments is still hard. As technology improves, more of these repetitive jobs will be automated. But right now, it's about bridging the gap between lab demos and the messy real world.
So you're saying the current time, even the simplest adaptability the robot cannot achieve. I thought the current like VLM reasoning those can achieve such a problem. Can solve such a problem.
It's true that visual language models have made reasoning leaps, but robotics in the physical world is more than reasoning. A robot needs precise real-time control, robust sensing in unpredictable conditions, and safety guarantees. While reasoning helps, physical dexterity, reliability, and adaptability to real-world variation are tougher. Even simple tasks might have edge cases, oddly shaped objects, unexpected obstacles. So reasoning is advancing, but translating that into reliable physical action at scale remains a work in progress.
Say, like just an example, one knows how production line like a McDonald's is, and there's like I don't know 5 different people working in one store. In ideal world, one can potentially just have one human as a supervisor or diffuser kinda, and then the rest are all done fully automated. I mean, the burger itself is already kind of like an assembly line in the first place.
In a highly controlled environment like that, yes, it's plausible. Many steps in fast food are already standardized. The challenge is that even in simple settings, slight variations, customer preferences, machine errors, or food quirks require adaptive handling. You'd need robots with reliable dexterity, perception, and safety. We'll get there in stages. First, we automate certain parts, then as tech matures, more of that line could be automated. But for now, those subtle human touches keep multiple people in the loop. It's a progression, not a leap.
That doesn't make sense. Like, why you need multiple? Like, one is more than enough to supervise the subtleties.
It's less about the number of people and more about the readiness of the tech. Today's robots aren't fully reliable in varied open environments. A single supervisor might handle occasional edge cases, but those edge cases happen frequently. Custom orders, equipment quirks, unexpected hiccups. Over time, automation will handle more. But right now, multiple staff ensure smooth, fast operations. We'll reduce that as tech improves, but we're not quite there yet.
I guess the real problem is a wage. If the wage is high enough, it's incentivize automation.
That's exactly it. When labor costs rise, automation becomes more attractive because businesses see a return on investing in machines. Conversely, when wages are low, the incentive to automate drops. Automation thrives when it's cheaper and more reliable than human labor. So, as wages increase and tech matures, that's when automation, humanoid or specialized, makes the most economic sense.
Yeah, to a degree, we haven't reached the break-even points. So we're still at human have a slight edge on that because human are willing to take lower wage on those repetitive work compared to the robot maintenance costs and the one-time purchase.
Exactly. Until the full cost, development, purchase, maintenance drops below that human wage benchmark, humans remain more flexible and cost effective. As technology improves and costs drop, we'll hit that break-even point for more tasks. But right now, human adaptability and total cost tip the scales in favor of people, at least for many everyday jobs. So, bottom line, humanoid robots may be a long-term dream, but right now, specialized automation and human workers still rule the day. Over time, tech and economics will shift the balance, but we've got plenty of time before we're fully handing over the spatula or the laundry basket.
So I guess in summary is that humanoid robot is still long way away as a type of as a type of replacement of a human, and as a current industry work, we have multiple deficiency in namely cluster vision, computer vision in the cluster scene, and training data, touch sensitivity, power efficiency, fail rate, and then the humanoid limitation because it's just lack of efficiency to a specialized task. In research bleeding edge, there are much better simulation, better vision, and they already have progression on the tactile sensing. But constraint remains. I think the big as we discussed, the biggest constraint is a data availability effectively, because we do not have training data for robotic compared to other like AI tests we thrived for the last few years. And then simulation can bridge the gap, yet the simulation is extremely expensive if you create a extreme high fidelity simulation. In the timeline, in 5 years, specialized robot with a slight variation can be achieved. I think to a degree at the current stage we are already reached to such stage, in the sense that we can do that, but the problem is those tasks is still cheaper for human to do compared to robot. In the future, generalized robot with limited touch in 10 years is possible. Yet the hype in the finance is unfounded, but at least we have to be happy about that. Push the research and development of one of the most important tasks important tech in this century, one would argue.
You've summed it up well. Humanoid robots are a distant goal, and right now, specialized tasks still favor humans on cost and adaptability. We're seeing bleeding edge progress, better sensors, simulations, and incremental milestones. But data, tactile feedback, and costs remain hurdles. In the next decade, we might see broader, still limited generalization, but not the hype-claimed revolution. Still, the buzz does fuel R&D, and whether slow or fast, we are tackling one of this century's grand challenges.